Hi, Hamilton. This is Neil Laoghaire with the FontFlow web-based font management and delivery platform. It's my presentation. It's a web app for designers and developers. The origins of the idea were really my own frustration with having a number of web print fonts on my system that I couldn't use for web projects. And these are TTF and OTF format fonts, and they need to be converted to the web-friendly WOOF. I also needed a way of managing these fonts that was different from the usual desktop apps. So I came up with the idea of FontFlow to solve that problem. And the target audience really is anybody who uses fonts in a creative way: web designers, developers, brand managers, agencies, and indeed type agencies who would find an easy way of testing their fonts for web. And the tech stack was the front end was React, which powers the user dashboard, allowing real-time font previews, uploads, and project management. Backend was Node and Express, which handles the API requests for font uploads, metadata extraction, and project linking. Database is MongoDB, which stores the font metadata, user counts, and the project details. And the cloud storage for the fonts themselves was AWS S3. Also stored the URLs that were needed for linking the embedded code. Identification was JWT, and that ensures secure logins and role-based access. Version control was through GitHub, and deployment was through Vercel and Render. And the workflow was the user logs in with JT notification, then font upload happens. The fonts are both converted to WOOF and metadata extracted. Then the fonts can be previewed in a live modal, and the fonts on the projects page can be linked to specific projects, and then the embedded code is generated. The requirements has to have multi-format uploads of the tree type fonts and open type fonts and the WOOFs, and then automatic meta extraction, and then project level filtering of the actual projects themselves, and then the generation of the secure URLs for the font embedding. Non-functional will be high performance for font delivery. So that means that you won't have a thing called flout, which is a flash of unstyled text when the website is uploaded. And then security and access control obviously will have to be strong, and then scalability if you want to use this in a commercial as a commercial entity. The challenges were I coded the auth and JWT too early, and that meant that this blocked basic CRUD testing and created missing out of sync tokens and caused 401 errors. The lesson here was that do the authentication last, and maybe set up some guards and some dev bypasses, and concentrate on the core functionality to begin with. The other challenge was deployment structure and choices. I nested the front end in the back end, which worked locally but failed in production. And then when I tried to go and deploy it, I tried Wayway first, but it was way too sensitive and was generating too many errors. I switched to Render for the back end and then Vercel for the front end, and that worked pretty well. The only problem was that I'd worked so long in local that the deployment issues piled up. The lesson here would be to pick hosting early and test deploys regularly, and don't rely on it works locally for too long. The other challenge, and bear with me on this one, was to do with the cross-origin resource sharing and the fonts being forced on fonts and forcing early deployment. So basically, the early dev setup had the hosts on two different ports, 3000, 4000, and these generated CORS errors and browser blocks of APIs and font requests. And also meant that the fonts needed the correct MIME and CORS from the server and bucket, and the local dev couldn't serve them both. So the end result was that it having worked locally, but once I went to use it with the AWS, all sorts of CORS errors were started to appear. So the end result was that halfway through the process, I had to start deploying to Vercel and render. And obviously I hadn't done, as I mentioned earlier, the testing throughout, so the deployment issues stacked up. So the lesson there for me was plan the web, the cloud hosting and course rules for fonts early so that you can test it in a production-like environment and avoid a forced early deployment. The tech choice was React, which worked very well for the component and state model suited for interactive prompt previews and the role-based dashboards, and easy conditional rendering and routing for admin versus user. Where it added complexity was two separate deployments for the front end and back end with dual environments and hydration timing issues for authentication and data fetching. Would it have been simpler to have used HTML, CSS, and JavaScript? Probably yes, but we would have lost out on that rich interactive previews and the role-based UI for tables. The lesson here is that React worked well for my features, but maybe I could have used something like Next.js, which would have delivered the same UX, but less deployment and state management complexity. Positives, stepping out of my comfort zone. I spent my whole time in the LAMP stack building WordPress sites. So very first time to dive into JavaScript ecosystem. Developed hands-on skills in designing and executing API tests with Postman. Learned Node and Express from scratch instead of just relying on PHP plugins for APIs. Using cloud storage in practice with Amazon, and looking beyond templates that you usually use in WordPress. So the lesson here really is moving away from the familiar LAMP workflow was challenging, but it gave me a much broader toolkit and the confidence to tackle complex modern web apps. So the opportunities for FontFlow are developer-friendly and GDPR alternative to Google Fonts on Amazon, and could be a subscription-based monetization and various different plugins for WordPress and Sigma. So with 2 minutes to go, I think I'll dive out of this and show you the. Okay, let's log in. Just going in here as the admin. That's just a CEDAR warning. So we have 3 fonts here, duplicate already. So let's just delete that one. And then we can upload a font. There you go, this is directly from Google. And at the moment it is both uploading, converting and extracting that metadata that goes to MongoDB and then to Amazon. So go back to the dashboard. So we have a new font up there and we can download it here. And that is the converted version, and then this is the downloadable version. And then we can preview it. It's a very standard sans serif font. We can actually just do something like hello world. And we can just change the text color on the background. And then we can mess with the line out as well. So that's, we've made our choice. So then we go into font projects. And then we can already have them assigned here, but we can remove another and then just reassign them. So put that in, add the font, and then add another font. So then we create our code underneath. We can copy this code, and then we go to our page here. I should really show you the front end. So there is no, it's on style at the moment. So let's go back in. And then we'll put in the various fonts into the H2 tag. And this should have the effect of changing everything on that page to a sans serif except for the H1 tag. So that is in a nutshell how it works.